So a little bit about the sales process for those of you that might not know all the sales process here. Prospecting is really like, identifying who are the people that we're targeting, right? Who are they? Where do we find them? Once we identify those people, there's outreach. So outreach would be like whether it's through email, through cold calling someone, calling them up and talking to them, whether it's we're talking to them at a trade show or event. You basically have that small window of time to get their attention. And the goal of getting their attention is to secure a discovery meeting where we talk more about broadly what they're looking for, their wants, needs, pain points, and then after that, solutioning and creating value from what we heard in the previous part of the process, and finally you have the closing, which includes things like the proposal and contracting and actually having them sign the piece of paper. So one note I did allude to upselling and then also current clients. One note on that is that our expectation, because we have a relationship with that client, is that we're going to be further along. So, the expectation for upsell is that you're almost at this phase with the red line here. And so when a salesperson comes to you, if you're on the client service team or account management team, or you interact with clients and they're working on an upsell, they're going to be looking for lots of information because they may have been removed from that account for a period of weeks or months, and they want to get themselves to this point in terms of understanding those pain points, understanding kind of the hot buttons of what that client is interested in, so that when they do go in front of or back in front of that client, that they're presenting something that's immediately relevant, as opposed to something that is like, hey, what about these 5 things that are all very different?
Yeah, that extends out to all the account managers, that extends even to your role, sir. You should be listening for those cues of, can we get another channel in here? With current TMS clients, they're going to start hitting their head on what they can do with TMS as more is expected of them as marketers, that what Fuse can actually bring to the table. So we're going to really rely on everyone to get to that point. Thanks, bro. So as we go through this, we'll just kind of quick fire through the sales process and talk about some of the things about UCB, some of the things to think about. Once again, it's really for, the sales team, this is what they do, this is what they know. It's for all of us to kind of really get on the same page to support them. If you're brought into a discovery meeting, you got to understand why we want them to speak. We want them to be speaking 80% of the time because we're going to use that information to get to the solutioning section, so forth. So let's just start here, and we can feel free to ask questions or add people on the phone. Feel free to add whatever you'd like, and here we go. So in the prospecting phase, it's about how to find these people that we want to find. Carolyn handles a lot of the kind of inside sales or approach, or at least demand gen. So, these are the customers that we're looking for, marketers who are looking to understand their customer journey better, whether it's they're trying to solve for attribution, or they're trying to solve for personalization, or they're looking for media spend efficiency. And certainly these 4 verticals are our best verticals. These are ones that we have marquee clients that we can show our leadership in. We have great examples, and obviously we'll be building more case studies and et cetera, et cetera. So anyone, if you hear, in a conversation that the client's interested in one of these things, or that's really a cue for us to think about them for UCB. But not everyone's a good prospect. Good prospects would be people that have the budget to afford this, because it really is an investment. Other things like media, even if it fails, you got some media impressions from it.
Who's the client that Mike Sands saves, the pool client?
Pool Supply World?
Yeah, Pool Supply World.
I don't think they qualify as good.
Right, this would eat up their whole marketing budget. You need to find someone where they really understand that, $500,000, $1 million, $250,000, it really brings value to them. And it would be great if they're actively looking for a single view product, or at least they're kicking the tires on DMPs to bring that data nerve system to them. If they don't have one of our competitors already on site, that's a good thing. And willing to think outside the box. This is a brand new discipline. It's new. It's uncomfortable. A lot of times people say in this industry, especially when it comes to technology purchases, everyone wants to be second. They want to see it work. They want to read about a case study or talk to one of their colleagues at another company that's done it, that's hired that vendor, and that really works. So it's going to be, you know, a push. So you need people that get it. If they have a measurement or a big data initiative already set on with budget, that's fantastic. And certainly data sophistication, that's something we're going to be talking about in a second. Yes, Steve?
Didn't I also hear at one point that the organizational structure and cohesion of the company itself is important because there were certain data parcels were in the different verticals and you couldn't bring them together? Do they have to have a sophistication or a maturity around what their organization?
That's a real good point. So phone people, Steve brought up that even the organization, you know, the right organization that's thinking about this, whether you have somebody, you know, strong at the top who can get this done and can bring all the channels together, or you have an organization that's already built with their silos collapsing a little bit, already on that journey, whether it was through an attribution initiative, which when I was at Visual IQ, it actually would bring companies together, because for the first time they saw their data in one place. And that's what this can be too, but certainly the organization, I mean, there's even more opportunity at the organizations that are so chaotic because they have more pain around it, but did you want to?
I would say probably bigger opportunity, but definitely harder to navigate, right? Like if they haven't organized themselves, if they haven't, you know, organizationally said this is the direction that we're moving in, it is difficult. And I think that's where, you know, we have to kind of play toward solving like maybe a discrete pain point in one area, but then we have to be working these other areas as well and looking for opportunities to, like for example, you know, Kohl's is a good example, right? We're dealing with a mobile team that has said we need to deploy this tracking for mobile. Well, okay, but we also have conversations going on with the digital marketing team, and then we have conversations going on with the site monetization team. Like they don't all realize yet, they haven't connected the dots and said, well, if we had a unified customer view, we could solve all of these things, right? We'll get them there, right? But it's like organizationally, they haven't gotten there. So I think it does create a challenge, and then it just we have a different way of approaching it if they haven't gotten to that level of organization yet.
So on the flip side, I mean, the same things that make someone a good prospect if they don't have some of these things in place. So if they don't have the budget to be able to do this, if they're not at all interested in a single view solution, if there's one of our competitors deeply entrenched, it's going to be a little harder because the moment we educate them that they need single view, and they're like a big Adobe shop, of course they're going to talk to Adobe.
The Nike Bates example.
Yeah, you create the hunger, and then they go get it from their current competitor. Doesn't mean it's a walk away, but it definitely makes it harder.
Still a prospect.
Still a prospect. If they're very rigid, no, we want to do this with CrossChannel. We're down the road, we want to do LiveRamp, and that's it. It's going to be harder to move them around. They don't want to change their measurement practice. They like it where it is. And then certainly not sophisticated, and there will be times we walk away. Not often, but certainly if we really feel like it's going to be a waste of time because they're not exhibiting good prospect flags, then we may walk away.
Especially in the mobile world where it's like, oh, our SDK versus the no SDK approach, the tailoring and site approach, that's been a big topic as of late. Well, if we're confident that this potential client never wants to do any matching whatsoever, they just want to get their mobile data to an analytics partner and that's it, no future, like, that might be one that we want to walk away from.
Or we lower the price just to stick it to the site.
Yes.
But it's good to know. But it's good to know those things, yeah.
I have a quick question about how can you tell if someone is sophisticated?
I got some of that coming up. So I'm glad, that's a great segue, Carolyn. Carolyn asked how to know if someone's, that was a plan. You got $10 coming in. So what I kind of put together here is the UCV persona paradigm. Dun, 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 dun.
Trademark?
Trademark, copyright, registered. Take it to the bank. UCVPP. So really what this is, and we'll add to it as ongoing, is that whoever you talk to, yes, they're going to have some variables like what company they're in, what industry they're in, what country they're in, etc. But 4 variables that always seems to define the folks, and they share some of these major attributes would be, are they an agency or an advertiser employee? Are they, or are we talking to an agency, or are we talking to a direct advertiser? Are we talking to a marketing organization, or the people at the marketing organization that are brand focused or DR focused? Are they actively looking for a single view solution, or are they not yet looking for single view? And then what is their data sophistication? We'll go into these right now. So at the advertisers, they're very stuck. They don't know what to do. All they know is they're not getting the results they want. There's not a single advertiser that thinks that they're doing amazingly and they could never do better. But where do you go from there? Is it social? Is it mobile? Is it website? Is it offline? Is it sponsorships? Everyone's telling them this is the most important thing. We're telling them matching, someone else is telling them programmatic, someone else is telling them mobile, someone else is telling them personalization. But what we do know is they truly want to know who their audience is and understand those audiences. They want to keep a consistent brand experience. They don't want the same customer, you know, feeling like this brand is more of a hit brand versus this more of a stable brand versus this more of a big brand. They want each customer to feel like the brand is consistent. And they certainly want to be able to evaluate every element. I'm talking every ad, every partner, every agency, every platform. That's the only way they're going to be able to make the decisions of, you know, do we need to fire this search agency? Do we need to hire a new matching service? Is if they have some sort of centralized data set to help them measure things. Agencies, on the other hand, they have a technology problem. The technology has never been there from agency folks to really execute onto marketing the way that clients expect them to. So, and also, they haven't always been able to get access to the data. So they need, but still, their advertiser clients hold them to very, very high standards. They've got to get results. They've got to prove value. Anyone who's been in an agency, you're shaking your head right now. Yes. And another thing that we can kind of exploit is that, hey, agency, you need to bring this before someone else does. You know, most big brands have a handful of agencies, a bunch of agencies. You don't think this agency is looking at the other agencies on, we want to be the agency of record. They may bring it to you before your other agency does. And so if you're at an agency, this is something you should get ahead of. And when we talk to agencies, we should really hammer that through.
Stephanie, did you nail it?
Nailed it.
So for brand marketers, they're really thinking about things like reach and frequency. They're not so worried about what's going on today. They're worried about the long-term relationship and the brand itself and the brand experience versus DR marketers, which is just about the bottom line. They just want to get the CPA they're looking for and meet and beat the metrics. And they're all about optimization. In fact, I've noticed DR marketers will try anything. If they think that you can get another extra percent efficiency or another extra percent lower, you know, cost per acquisition, they'll give it a whirl. If it doesn't work, they can move on.
What are some examples of brand versus direct marketers?
So, branding teams, who wants to answer that? Branding, go ahead, Stephanie. Who else?
Like a car company who's, you know, you can't really buy something online, there's no DR endpoint. Obviously the end goal is a sale, but a lot of their advertising is focused on like, you know, getting you interested in the product, focus on the brand,
Emotion.
emotion, getting to, you know, elicit some sort of affinity with you.
And they probably want eyeballs over
Right.
conversions, right?
Right.
We don't really convert on those types, right?
You know, someone told me a long time ago, they said branding is just DR, but at a long term. It really is about response, but it's more about understanding if you build a great brand, that you will get the return from that. Versus DR, someone who has a DR budget, literally it's by like a quarter. Like, here's $10 million, you need to generate 30 million from it, go. Branding can be a little bit more long-term.
So are these like separate positions, or is this one
Absolutely.
person with different?
There may
Okay.
be someone at the top that's over, but generally, especially at the large level marketers, you have branding folks and you have DR folks.
And what are some like sample job titles of DR marketers?
They're probably about the same.
You
Same
could,
job
Yeah.
title?
I mean, you have like brand
Different
managers, like
you have brand managers.
like if someone has a brand in their title, then they're definitely brand focused. And those people who are brand managers, I would say in today's world always have a digital budget to spend for branding. So if you think of something like, you know, a Sprint, right? You have someone that's going to be a brand manager for Sprint or even within the sublines of what Sprint offers. And they're going to be focused on, you know, awareness and like the sentiment of the brand.
Creative messaging.
And then you've got the people that are like, I mean, this was my client at Sprint. He was the VP of digital at Sprint, and he was like, you know, his message to me was, I want to sell more phones. That's it. So that's what he cares about. He doesn't give a shit about how people feel about the brand unless they feel like buying a phone.
And there's, you know, definitely conflict. You know, the DR folks are willing to like kill the brand. No, hey, we're a luxury brand, says the brand team. We don't do coupons. We don't do offers. And there's obviously tension because the DR folks, they're like looking at the reports every day. I mean, I had a client once in Search that was an acquisition manager. That's another title. Anytime you see acquisition, it's going to be DR. And like he would call me every day, like, I got no play. He was like a gambler. There's no play going on in my keywords. What's going on with my keywords? I'm like, dude,
Well, I think it's something that a lot of
double
marketers.
down. He would say double down. Go ahead.
A lot of marketers struggle to understand how brand impacts direct response. So like, for example, like in Nordstrom's, there's a lot of branding plays there where they integrate with like magazines and they do custom content programs, and that's very much branding focused, but they also do DR because they want you to buy something online. And so DR gets all the credit because you're looking at a retargeting ad, you're clicking on a search campaign, you're looking for something very specific. That all goes to DR, but how do you actually, you know, figure out how much that branding actually impacted that closed sale? So that's been like, for a while now, it's like, how much should we invest in one versus
And then
the
if
other?
we tie that back to UCB and how UCB helps, like what if we can get the data set all in one and they can do better attribution to see how the branding did affect the purchase. So it really does reflect back to us.
Were these always split, or was there a time that DR and the brand teams were the same team?
I think it depends on the company, because
Depends on the
sometimes they
company.
are the same
Smaller
person.
companies, they are.
Okay.
Companies that have like low price points that are like right online, their brand and DR, there's a very blurry line between it because it's all trying to get people to buy now. But the big companies that we go to, brand is actually more important than DR.
Right.
It will literally trump. No, you can't do this, you can't do this. My wife's best friend, she's a brand manager. She goes to all the TV photo shoots, she goes to all the magazine shoots, and is just literally there to make sure nothing's off brand. The color red is their main color, the certain color red. It has to be an exhibit. There's a certain upper scale that they're always trying to reach. If anyone would try to do anything outside of that, even to the hairstyle, the makeup, the clothes that the actors wear, she's telling them, no, that's not what we're trying to do for message. So branding is more, I would say branding always trumps DR, but DR folks are like on a tear. They always are being held to a metric that they can never reach.
So it's
They're
really
always
the
pushing.
metrics that are separating these, right? So it's
I would say
awareness,
so.
impressions, actual
Yeah.
eyeballs, sentiment of the brand. Is that something that we're looking at rolling into this and providing that as a piece of the view, the actual
Absolutely.
sentiment of the brand?
Absolutely. One of our use cases is a reach and frequency data
Right.
feed.
Where are we getting that info from?
That
data.
can be completely done by customer journeys.
Okay.
Right.
It's
so,
the same data feed, it's just a different use case for that same data feed.
And we're also putting a sheet together with these UCDPP. You're gonna have a recap so you can like go through it. You can be like, okay, they're a brand. Okay, they're focused on direct response. Okay, like you're gonna be able to put those pieces together and formulate a pretty good approach and pretty good idea of what's important to them.
So someone who's actively looking for a solution, you know, it's interesting, they're very interesting, and obviously it's the kinds of prospects that we want to reach. You know, they probably have a lot of questions. They may be just trying to solve that single use case or just trying to put this together. They may not know that single view exists. They're thinking like DMPs or they're thinking about attribution companies. Right now, where the market is, they don't even necessarily know, Carolyn, where that single view, some people have never even heard of it, or they've heard of it but didn't connect it back to the data, the data set. And they may even have budgets already for something along this line. And versus passive buyers, they may not know they need single view, but they will be feeling the cross-channel crunch right now. Any marketer that we're approaching with high-level dollars, with a lot on the line, is feeling the crunch of not being able to do what they want to do because of cross-channel. Single view, unified customer view solution absolutely helps address all of that. As we
Like
talked
all of our
about last
current
week.
TMS clients that you don't ever hear a peep from, and they don't come at you saying like, hey, I need new channels. That would be a passive buyer, but they still have potential for us to get them into like, hey, actually start thinking about this stuff. You probably, inject a lot of education and want of cross-channel data and stuff with those passive buyers, so they can be made into active.
But when it comes to the 4 out of the UCVPP, I have to argue that data sophistication is actually the most important variable. I mean, if they can't get it, and you can't get to the level of their understanding, they won't buy it. And regardless if they're an agency person, advertiser, a brand focus, a DR focus, an active or passive buyer, you have to immediately, very quickly, in the first 5 minutes, be able to try to figure out what their sophistication level is. And all you guys that will be brought into this conversation, when you are involved in a pitch, you have to tune into immediately because if you start taking it to a high level versus the salesperson is trying to take it to a deep dive level, then the thing, it just won't jive. The customer needs to feel like you're talking to them at their level, even if they don't even realize those levels exist. And, let them speak, ask the questions, and I've got some questions coming up. And I wanted to present this Experian paper, Jared. I think this is very important for you. I got this and I'll share it with everyone, but I thought Experian wrote this wonderful paper about where marketers are, and if you really ingest this, you really can, I think you could walk away like literally within 5 minutes being able to put any market you speak to in one of these buckets, and then from there really understand what's motivating them, what's driving them, what's important to them. And this, I think, goes across not just what we're doing, but even any sales role in any in the market industry. It's a really cool thing, and I'll send a link around. You guys can check it out.